Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Good morning, Jeff.
I'm not hearing any.
Morning.
Oh, there
Oh,
you are.
yeah, okay.
Good morning.
Uh, Hold on. I'm not hearing you too well. I don't know if my volume was up.
Oh, okay.
Wait, here we go. I think that was it.
That'll help.
Yeah. I had some trouble getting my computer to agree with my camera. That's why I'm a few minutes late. But I think we're good now.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah, good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good to see you. Happy New Year, Bill.
Jeff
Wherever
said
you are.
Happy New Year, Bill. He's over in the corner. Did you have a good holiday season?
Yeah, that's good. No complaints. I mean, pretty mellow.
Good.
How about you?
Jesse had a good time?
Yes. Very good time. He's still on school break.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't go back until a week from today, actually.
Ah,
Yeah, he's been very happy. We've been pretty active. He's been doing things. So
great.
yeah,
Yeah, good.
everybody's okay.
Okay. Yeah, no, we had a very quiet, pleasant couple of weeks. Got a fair amount of sleep. Um,
Or
so all is good.
that's good.
Goodness. My goodness. That's very happy.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you recording, David?
I am.
Okay.
Wonder of wonders.
We both remembered.
So, questions? Um,
Were you going to talk a little more or somewhat about the five elements today and the handout you sent us?
more than I talked about last time?
Well, I don't know. I'm
What? Sure. What is your
Well,
question?
I had one question about where it says wood is the new yang and is the first stage of the new cycle. What does it mean it's the new yang? That's one of the paragraphs in the handout you sent.
Oh, um,
Are you not hearing me?
no, I'm hearing you, but I'm trying to remember whether that. I'm wondering if that's a misprint.
It starts a new paragraph on this page right here.
Oh yeah.
That wood is and new is kind of italicized. Wood is the new yang, the first stage of the new cycle. It is
So
aggressive, vigorous energy and bursts forth with the depth of substance, expanding,
yep.
invigorating all in its
Yep.
field of influence, and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't really know what was being said by that.
So this is referring to the cycles uh, of the five elements,
Hmm.
and so the new yang is like the new moon. It's it's the beginning of the cycle that grows to the fullness of yang.
Okay. Um, is that something that we're applying in our practice as far as
Not really
our
significantly, no.
postures?
No.
Okay.
It In terms of, well, we certainly, well, no, we are not really working with that cycle
Right,
in either the standing practice or in the form.
okay,
We are working with the energies of those elements. That's what I'm much more focused on here, since each one of those is related um, to a posture, to an application. Um, and I wasn't really going to go there yet.
okay. Well, that's fine. I didn't know
Yeah,
uh, how much of this we were getting into this soon, or if this was we're going to gradually discuss it more, or what.
we can when you talk about the cycles of the energy, now you're getting really into more of the application of the five elements to the medical, um, which of course is where this information originates from.
Right,
So the Taoists, of course, um, literally thousands of years ago, we don't know exactly when, but somewhere beyond at least 1,000 BC, when um, there are carvings in stone referring to them.
hmm,
Um, they were exploring this in relation to health and their effect on the health.
right,
Um, Really, the application of them, um, I think, in to Qigong and Tai Chi grows out of that as simply a development from that.
right.
But the focus is a little different since, um, well, certainly in Qigong we're also looking at healing. We're not looking we're not
Right,
looking at fighting. In the form, you're looking at some other possibilities.
right,
Um, Although there are there are martial qigong forms, we don't actually get into those, uh,
right,
but they do exist.
right.
Um, so,
I was trying to make some connection because I remember way, excuse me, way in the past,
hmm
there were times that we did. I don't know if it was when Jay was up, or I don't even remember. It wasn't. It may have been part of one of our classes, but we were doing a little continuous flow, like the 5-step flow that was also referring to the five elements. And so, we were making that connection in a flow there. I didn't know if we are trying to do the same thing now in what we're doing.
no,
Okay.
no. Well, I do remember Jay taking us through a practice in which we focused on the on actually focused on 12 flows in their connecting sequence,
Huh,
um, which is not related solely to the five elements. It's related to the eight gates of the Qigong of the um,
yeah, I
I
think it was
Ching.
a workshop, David. I think it's coming back to me a little bit. He did a workshop, I think that was the five elements in the eight gates
Yeah,
a long time ago.
yep.
Okay.
Well,
All
that
right.
was part of that workshop. That
Right.
wasn't all of it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm trying. I guess my hesitation here is I don't want to make this so complicated
Right.
that you that you stay locked in your head instead
Yeah.
of feeling what's going on.
All right. Well, that's fine. I'm all for that.
Yeah, I mean there is an enormous amount of energy. There's a wonderful book on the five elements. Um, I don't know, 200 or 300 pages talking about the five elements. So I mean, you can get deeply into it, and in its
All right.
application in traditional Chinese medicine, that's extremely important because if you remember in talking about the five element flow, the, that we have the creative cycle where the energy of each of the elements helps the energy of the next element grow. It
But
also,
that you talked about a little bit in here.
what? Yeah,
That was referenced and talked about in the pages you just
right.
indicated.
And
Yeah,
then the control cycle, which is also mentioned in there,
right,
is a way to limit um, the effect of one element on another.
right,
Um, and there are two other cycles actually of how the elements interact, how the five elements interact with each other. So it's a very complex system, and when you look at it from the standpoint that each element is referring to an organ, it now you're really beginning to focus on how it affects your health.
right.
So it it's an interesting, really interesting approach, but it is one that's very complex, and I don't
Right.
want to. I want us to be aware of it, but not overemphasize it.
Okay. Got it.
So when we talk about the eight gates, which of course is for us is a really important um, principle in in Tai Chi, because we're talking about the eight gates of the I Ching. You you can either look at those as separate energies, not necessarily the five gates, five elements. They can be simply looked at as the eight energies that affect everything that happens in the universe.
Hmm.
Um, would, when we apply it to Qigong, as we're doing in the standing work, we think of them as referring to the five elements and to the three um, primary dantians.
Right.
So it's just another way of looking at that eight gate principle. And the gates that refer to the also can also be looked at as referring to the five elements. Indeed, represent the same um, element that they do when you look simply at the five element theory separately. So we're applying it in a specific way here, um, and it's used in standing work in Qigong, as I introduced last class, to focus on um, not only drawing energy into all of those eight specific areas, but also to cleansing those areas.
Hmm.
So whenever you draw fresh energy into an organ or a dantian, it can also precipitate the release of energy that it cannot use. So it can be very beneficial. It, one of the things is that when you begin to focus this way in the standing work, you actually can feel, believe it or not, you can feel each of those organs or those dantians expand and contract as
Hmm.
you're doing this. And when you get to
Are
that,
you
when you get to that point,
Have you experienced it
oh yeah,
yourself? Have you experienced
oh yeah.
it? Okay. Huh.
Um, and I think I've mentioned before, Bruce, in being examined by the um, Harvard Medical School, they put him under all kinds of machines. He
Right.
he can not only expand and contract any organ that he chooses, he can move it in any direction that he wants to move it.
Wow.
And they documented this because
Right.
they didn't believe it, so,
Yeah.
so they invited him to come and demonstrate.
Wow.
Um, so it um, that's what you're working towards. One
Right.
simply begins by trying to really be clear about breathing into an organ or into the dantian,
Right.
and focusing on that. So one of the reasons for doing that is that it helps you be really clear about where you're focusing. So if you don't know where one of those organs or energy places is, then it's not going to be as effective.
Mm. Right.
So I don't know if I confused you further.
No.
Does that help some, Jeff?
Yeah, I think that's enough information to give me an idea of a better idea of what we're talking about and how much you want us to focus or not focus on it at this point.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's good. Thank you.
It is more important at this point to be clearly focusing on the specific area that you're endeavoring to breathe energy into than it is to intellectually understand more about the five elements.
Right.
I mean, I know I gave you some information, and I think it's good for you to have it, but it's not particularly applicable for us right at the moment. A lot of it. Some of it, yes, but not all of it. I will say that in Qigong practice, that you can treat a particular organ in the body by how much you actually even simply by how many breaths you focus into it. So, for instance, um, they suggest that we should initially we should be doing at least 8 breaths at each of these um, positions. But if you, for instance, are aware that your kidneys are deficient,
That's me.
hmm?
That's me.
Yeah, um, then you would, in the process, instead of only doing 8 breaths, you would do 20 into the kidneys. So you can, if you have a specific um, issue that you're aware of, you can also focus it to benefit that or to improve it.
We were doing the 8 gates. I know you guys talked about this in the last class. You were talking about it, and Bill was saying how many he does, and you were saying we only did 3 basically in the interest of time in class. But
Mm.
I mean, go through the 8. You don't for effectiveness. You don't have to do the same number on each of the 8. You can focus on 1 or 2 and do a lot more reps on that if it applies to something that you're trying to work on individually.
If it's yeah, if it's a specific issue, yes.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. All right.
Blah blah blah. And do you have any questions here in the midst of all of this?
When we do the standing work this morning, will you just briefly identify the organ?
Oh, yeah.
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 That'd be great. I was going to ask the same thing, actually.
Guys, you don't have this all memorized yet?
So close. Oh, so close.
um, and as I said, for instance, um, it makes a difference whether you're holding the hands so that you're connecting to the upper dantian, or whether you're at the right level to connect to your lower dantian,
Mm,
um, and the and particularly the middle. And one of the things is to be aware that when you have that connection, um, it feels. My thought is that it feels like when you connect the Laogong points, that you can feel that. At least I'm presuming you can. um, so it is a similar kind of feeling that you can have a concrete energetic connection.
right.
Um,
Well, when you feel that connection to one of the three dantians, where do you feel it on the other end? Obviously, the dantian is one end, but are you feeling it in your fingertips, in your lagang point, in your whole arm? Where are you feeling that connection?
Eventually, throughout the entire body.
Eventually, but what about initially?
Well, as with everything else, you would start with the fingers and then the hand and add the wrist and add the forearm and elbow and then the upper arm and shoulder and scapula
Okay.
and spine.
Well, because sometimes with me, if I'm making connection, I feel it much initially more so on the lagang point than in the fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That's because that's the most open energetic point in the body.
Okay.
And so you will often feel it more strongly there than
Right.
anywhere else.
Right. That's generally true with me when I'm making connections.
Yeah. But you don't want, if you simply focus on the Laogong point, you cut off the flow going the rest of the way through its circuit.
Okay.
So you want to feel not only that there is a connection at the Laogong point, but that you also can extend that energy out through the fingers and back into the Laogong. That's a great place to start.
Okay.
Um, and that's exactly what's happening in all the movements in the form.
Hmm. Okay.
I feel like you didn't want to hear that, Jeff.
No, no, it's making me think. That's all.
Ideally.
Ideally,
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah.
Well, it I mean, I've been doing Tai Chi for 38 years. You know,
Right.
it's not, um, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to do a lot of it,
Yeah.
and not as much as Bruce, but um, who's a crazy man, but still, that length of time has allowed me to develop a lot of this that
Right.
that you're not going to have developed probably in 10 years unless you're exceptional.
Right.
Um,
And can practice and focus pretty much every day and make little step by little step. But it's yeah. No, I understand.
yeah,
We do the best we can, and that's why hearing your experience and your progression helps as kind of a blueprint to sort of think about what to expect.
and it's also really important. It's interesting. Bruce was talking about this the other day. again for the 90th time, but how important the principle of separate and then combine is. Because if you don't really incorporate one element, it's very hard to go to the next one and do it well. So
Right.
you really have to develop these one at a time. Um, and as one becomes easily incorporated into what you're doing, then it becomes easier to add the next one. But each one takes time.
Oh yeah.
That's and practice, 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 practice. Um, Without practice, you don't make progress.
Right.
So, anyway, any other questions at the moment?
At the moment.
Oh, good. Let's do the 8 gates and talk about those lovely organs. I did have that. Yes, I do. Okay. So, what did I start to say? Well, I lost that thought. So begin by stepping out, coming into your basic position, making sure that you've relaxed the qua and allowed yourself to sink into your basic level. Feeling the feet connecting to the earth. And by way, connecting to the universe. The head lifting slightly off the top of the spine. The armpits open. The midriff open. The qua and perineum open. Knees, ankles and feet relaxed but not limp. And focus on releasing the energy to sink through your body. That sinking energy can draw energy that your body cannot use down into the earth. And then changing your focus to extending the mind through the body. So opening to feeling as much as you can this time. And just recognizing that whatever it is just fine. And it will be different each time you do it. And even though we're now focusing specifically and drawing energy into these 8 places in the body, we still want to continue doing everything else. Bending and extending, twisting in and out, lengthening in and out. And if you have the C curve, letting it also be present in the movement. So as you begin, bending and twisting in and extending into the upper dantian, and drawing fresh energy in and releasing the used. Then again, bending in as you go down to the lower dantian. That point below the navel. Then progressing to the next one, focusing on the kidneys, the energy of water. The kidneys can be accessed both from the front and the back. Coming up to the heart. And then moving down to the liver, the element of wood. Then coming up, the energy of the lungs. And then down to the energy of earth in the spleen. Endeavoring to expand that spleen. And then drawing into the middle dantian, located just at the base of the sternum. Drawing in, expanding out, and drawing in. Really endeavoring to feel the connection of the two Laogong points into that lower dantian. The center point of our body. Questions? Okay. Nothing for you, Jeff?
No, not at the moment. That
Okay.
was good.
So we're focusing on the beginning of the form
Right.
with Bill, which I thought was good. We did, I thought, some good work there.
Yeah.
How is it?
There just hasn't been enough practice.
Is there ever enough practice?
Oh, well, no, but, you know, as I said, this has been a disaster.
Yeah. So these are you. Yeah.
I found that focus to be good too. What, on the beginning, um, I practiced as much as I could. I focused on it a little bit too. And at one point, you particularly said, I've always been having problems getting that extra drawing in.
Hey, what?
I've always, since the beginning, I guess, I've always had problems with that extra drawing in um,
G.
before on.
Oh, before on. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And you said something in that last class. As far you applied it martially, I think you said drawing your opponent in so that you can bounce him out, and that helped clarify it to me a little bit as well, so that because if I envision kind of what I want to be doing bodily and martially and all, sometimes it helps. So that helped in that spot.
Good. I kind of reviewed what we had done last time, and the one thing I was going to, well, two things I wanted to mention. One is that with the arms and the twisting, they're constantly changing between the thumb edge and the little finger edge. So you have to be careful that you don't get locked into one. Because right at the beginning, we have a really clear example of that, in that, um, presuming you've done some preparation before you start to move, but the thumb edge twists in and the thumb edge twists out, and then the little finger edge twists in and out and in and out. And that's not the only change in this. So one of the things is not to get locked into, oh, it's just one edge that's moving, because it may not be. And in the form, just as in our standing work, there is constantly twisting going on. It's not just a little bit later we'll twist out. It is continuous, constant. It's very subtle. Some of it you really can't visually see sometimes in this form. In the Yang style, it's much clearer. But here, sometimes it's very subtle and it isn't really clear. So that was one thing I wanted to say. The other thing is that I talked about the possibility of two different ways to approach Lu, and I think it's better at this stage, because what I was looking at was the possibility of an application there. But I think it's better there, after you've done G, that this is all twisting in until you do the twist out in on. So thinking of Lu as just as a twisting in. And it really, now that we're really talking about detail here, it is really critical that it's not just this that's moving. It's your scapula have to be moving constantly. They are, and I know that for Bill and I, we're at an age where our scapula probably don't move as freely as yours, Jeff. But they can still move. And the more we move them when we practice, the more they will loosen up. It's also a good place to say to your massage therapist, uh, dig in a little under my scapula, will you? So, other questions in there?
Well, I mean, based on what you just said, are you saying that when we do go through Lu and on, that it's not drawing, Lu is just one long drawing in now? Is that what you prefer for this form?
Oh yeah, it's always been that way primarily. I was simply pointing out that it could be both in and out.
Okay.
But no, it basically is considered as just in,
All right.
unless you have an application that requires the out. But since we're not looking at this particularly as an active martial art,
Right.
Um, we're looking at it more as an energetic one.
Right,
At least that's the way I look at it. Let me put it that way.
right.
You may look at it any way you like.
Okay.
So, um, why don't you just do those first two, grasping the sparrow's tail, and
Okay.
let me see where you are. And I recognize the difficulty of the last 2 weeks. What I would say is that that's definitely better than it was at the beginning of the last class.
I have practiced a little, and I think I understood,
Yeah. Uh, it still feels to me very much like the hands are leading the movement rather than um, the real sense of that movement from the back.
yeah.
Um, also, just watch me for a
Mhm.
moment. When you went into Pung, this is kind of what you did. Okay, you ended up in the right place.
Okay.
Can you see the difference?
Yeah. This is doing, and mine is just flying up.
Yeah, yours are just kind of coming up,
Yeah.
and they need to have that focus, and at the same time, they are twisting outward slightly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all bad.
Hmm? Yeah.
It's all bad.
Okay, good. Well, you could play with that while I watch Jeff.
Okay.
1 second, Dave, sorry.
So, what was kind of interesting, um, you you started quite well. I felt like everything was connected. It was coming from the back, and then you got to here, and all of a sudden, the hands led.
Hmm.
And I think the same thing happened here. You got to here, instead of just twisting out and expanding from the back, the hands led.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Um, so part of this, of course, is really getting the connection of the elbows to the scapula and ultimately to the spine. But
Right.
um, if if you can get the twisting in to push the scapula in, then when you get to here, it can push the scapula out.
Right. Right.
And then it can push them in,
Yeah.
and then out.
Right. Okay.
So it's, I'm just encouraging both of you to really, really try to get that connection um, between the elbows and the scapula, and that just let the hands
Hmm.
respond, because that's what they're doing. They're
Right.
not causing the movement.
Right.
They're
Right.
just the end of the movement,
Right.
and that's only from the scapula to the fingertips.
Right.
There's a considerably more of your body involved in this, actually, ultimately.
Right. Okay.
Is that
Yeah. Yeah. Let me give it one more go.
sure? Well, that's not what you want, David. That was better. I think the thing I would say is that you are making the movement larger than it needs to be.
Hmm.
But I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah, I think I'm still continuing to do that while I'm focusing on making the connection with the elbow to the scapula and trying to
Yeah,
do it.
and
I
that's
think.
and that's okay. I'm I probably shouldn't emphasize that too much, um, because I don't. I'm not meaning to
So it's good
force
for me to
you.
be aware of, though. It's good for me to continue to be aware of because that's what this form is. It's smaller and smaller and
Yeah.
smaller movement. Yeah.
See, what I was feeling was that your pung is quite a ways out here, and
Good.
and then the G is even further.
All right. Yeah.
Um, and when you go from um, to the other side,
Yeah.
um, it, your hands are going all the way down to your lower dantian and coming back up to upper chest level.
Right. Way too much movement, in other words.
Yeah, just bigger than it needs to be.
Okay.
Um, the I mean, ultimately, this can get very small. It
Right,
doesn't, it doesn't have to be big.
right,
Um, Yang should get bigger and bigger and bigger as you do it. This gets smaller and smaller and smaller as you do it.
right.
So
Yeah,
just to be aware of that.
yeah.
Did you have a further question in there?
No, I was just thinking it would be, I was just wondering whether I should practice without thinking about removing my hands,
Mm-hmm.
a stump coming up here.
Yeah.
Of course, that does away with the gum and the fingertips and everything else
Yeah,
too, but, it may help me,
I don't think it's a bad thought.
yeah.
I think the thing I would say is not to do it with the hands.
Well, yes.
Like,
No, I mean,
but yes, if you can convince your hands to
well,
just
it's,
come along for the ride.
it carries over from the very, very beginning of, of learning the form, where my eyes were on what the hands were doing. Okay, they come up, they
That's
do this, they do that, and I haven't given that up yet.
yeah. Everybody, we all start that way.
Yeah,
You know, we have to be aware of what the hands are doing.
yeah.
But ultimately, we're trying to move this more deeply into the body.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any other question there, Jeff?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Let me message Bill. Oh, okay. So, well, let's go ahead.
Okay.
So, why don't you start at the beginning again, but go up through single whip.
Okay.
Maybe go on to pull down,
Okay.
but stop there.
Okay.
Stop at pull down. Okay. Just stay where you are. No, that's fine. Just think of pulling down.
Yeah. Okay.
Pulling down. Yeah. Yeah. So they're not going to be here. We're not pushing down.
Right.
This, yeah.
And they should stop around here.
Right in the middle of the
Right.
body. Always in the middle of the body. In the Wu style, more than the Yang, even, the hands do not cross the center line of the body.
Yeah.
So when you go into
Mm-hmm.
that pull down, you're pulling down, but my hands are still centered on the body.
Yeah.
I've pushed the scapula out. Yeah. Um, as you go into single whip, um, this can have more of a twist in, bend in, twist in.
And rounding, yeah.
So, um, it's coming in, it's
Okay.
going back out again.
Yeah.
It comes in as you reset the foot, and then you go right into this. And again, the hands are centered. This is about as wide apart as your feet, but it's still centered on the body.
Yeah. My motion is too much just that
Yeah.
rather than,
Well,
it's the figure eight that I've lost.
yeah. You got it. You got it. Yeah, exactly. Because this goes out, in, out, in, out. Yeah, it's clearly a figure eight-ish move.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Uh-huh. So that was good. What I would say is the bending and extending seems very clear. The twisting is not. It
Not clear with me yet either, so I understand that. I
um,
mean, it's clear what I should be doing, but I don't do it in every posture because I am thinking of other things right now, especially the scapula and this. So I do need to work on that more for sure.
yeah, but the twisting is part of what moves the scapula.
I know.
Yeah. So
Okay, so thank you for pointing that out, though.
yeah,
It's my focus now.
good. Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you work on this for a week.
Okay, sounds good.
Hope you find good practice time.
Hopefully.
We all need more time in our days.
I need 2 days in one. This next week in particular is going to continue to be difficult because Jesse doesn't go back to school until a week from today. So
Yeah.
that's a lot more time devotion than even usual that I've got to put in. But I'm not making excuses. I'm just
No,
saying
no, and
it's happening.
and that's what you should be doing. I'm not in any way
Right,
not understanding that.
right.
Believe me, when the boys were younger,
Yeah,
I had to struggle to find practice time.
yeah. Hey, it's a nice first world problem to have. You got your kids and you got your practice and two good things right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice problem to have.
Well, have a good week.
Thank
Yep.
you. You guys too.
Thank you.
Yep.
Take care.
You too.
Yep.
Bye bye.